Yeah, there's limits to this, to the data. It's always nicer to meet in person.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I mean, it's better to have a face from the front. That's just the truth.
Well, you look better, that's for sure.
Uh-oh. Oh my god. Fuck, what's that? A theory of
everything.
Yeah, maybe I have this kind of, that's, you know, otherwise I probably wouldn't have studied philosophy, among other things, or anthropology, like the worst. Actually, anthropologists, they always believe that they can explain everything. That's like, and that they have like this absolute, that they can, that most of the, that they can explain a whole society as a whole, and not just a fragment of it.
It took a long time until I was actually interested in, for example, the US and the English-speaking countries, because I came from this position that I'm like, that's like later when I was politicized as a teenager, I was also, like most people around me, very anti-American. That was very standard in Leipzig, and then, you know, later through theory, I was very much interested in realizing, oh, there's a lot of interesting stuff produced there. It's not just Coca-Cola and capitalism. So, yeah, in some ways, you know, then I became, you know, very much attached to, especially the American empire, and I've been, like, a lot of my work is dealing with American culture somehow. And dinosaurs, and, you know, the history of cinema, and especially the kind of history of entertainment cinema, much more than the European essay film or the bourgeois culture. I'm also more drawn to pop culture.
A few 100 million years later. You're interested in the rock record.
In the end, I thought, well, I still have to do this empirical research. I still have to go there and find out what you know, people now think about fossils and dinosaurs, and I can't just sit at my desk, analyze film, and think I can, you know, understand it in a way. And that's why I kind of planned for this trip to the States, where we like made a route, and then we were, you know, it was partly planned and partly also based on the interactions that we had there. I shot it with one other person, a friend of mine, who did the camera work, and then we were traveling and mostly sleeping in the car and in tents. We had very limited budget, so it was like a really interesting way of filming. Like filming every day, driving a lot, and like finding out on the way, and just having this idea in the head, like that there is connections. And there's a connection between fuel and dinosaurs. There's a connection between, you know, colonialism and science, and there's a connection between the kind of American culture of artifice and plastic and the kind of colonial history, and so just like you have these connections in your head, and you have to like then find a narration later in the editing, and how you make all these connections that you have in your head and the things that people say, how you can turn it into a whole narrative that is actually comprehensible.
I was drawn to dealing with the natural sciences from the beginning, I would say, but also as someone who is not a scientist, as someone who is like anyway drawn to the stories that are connected to science, to popular science, or to the way we make sense out of the world through science.
Yeah, I mean, what I found most interesting about that film, and you mentioned it before, colonialism and science, like this idea of like complicating and problematizing facts. Like facts aren't just facts, they're always ideological in a sense.
Yeah, and that is totally, you know, what interests me in science, because science also, in this kind of creating meaning and all that, they always refer to other fields of knowledge production, because they're actually unable to create this meaning just by science, because then this meaning would also be incomprehensible to other people. So they have to connect to other kind of fields of knowledge production that are already there.
I was also a person who doubted a lot, and who was many years in my youth, like too much thinking of all the possibilities together, and and at least theoretically, but also, you know, as a kind of character, I think I like to sometimes just assert things and then see what happens. For me, in claiming something, there's also the possibility of failure. That is for me the joy of filmmaking. Also because I came from theory, from philosophy, from a rational practice in language where you are supposed to prove everything. Whenever you want to make an association, you have to explain it and you have to give rational reasons for this association, and otherwise it's bullshit. When I moved more from theory to filmmaking, it's like I can just make this association and I don't have to claim that it is true, but I can somehow just follow a narrative. There is definitely some form of a dedication to actually finding out, and for me it's also, there's an ethical responsibility to the people that appear in my film, that they also somehow, that it has to be truthful to them. I think it's more like there is a story in the back that I want to tell, and there's also an openness, at least I really try to also have an openness towards, you know, the objective world, or whatever we call it, that we don't have an actual access to, but I let myself also be convinced by things that are somehow random. Like what is at stake for me is, rather than me being wrong or right, I think what should be at stake is like what's important right now for a lot of people, and in what way can I, also with my background, with my history and with my context, find a way to deal with that.